like made up words. Well, is it made up? I don't even know. But anyway, it's just, okay. Hi, welcome to Christy Gray Scarlet Pen. Today I am going through and doing a little bit of a September reading wrap up. I haven't done a reading wrap up in a really long time. I did go through and do a few non-fiction books, and I read full non-fiction books this month as well. So that took away my time for like some more really fun, exciting fiction stuff. So I'll probably really quickly run through those, but I won't talk about a whole lot about them. So I read 12 books in September. I am counting one. I technically finished it on the 1st of October, but I read most of it in September, so I'm counting it towards the 12 books. This month I read a lot because I'm studying, and so I had non-fiction stuff that I read for that. Mostly print. I read a couple of ebooks, and I did listen to some audiobooks as well this month, so which is different for me. All right, so I'm gonna go through, the first thing I wanna do is go through the actual fiction books that I've got them here, and then I will talk really briefly, I'll just mention the ones that I did that were non-fiction, but the first one that I read was Justice Delayed by Patricia Bradley. I'm actually trying to remember all of my thoughts for this last month because it's been a bit of a blur, to be honest, this last month. So I'm going to try and remember all of my thoughts, and if I have to look it up, I'll just have to look it up. But this is a Memphis cold case novel, so I've actually read 2 of her other books in this series before, and I love them. One was about Elvis, which was so much fun, and I read that before the movie came out, by the way. But it sort of had an Elvis element, and the other one had like a thievery element, which was fun, like a heist type of elements to it. And so I really, really enjoyed those. And I love Patricia's style. She's a great writing style. I really quite liked it. This one was about, so normally the Memphis cold case novels, there's a current murder or a current investigation that ties in with a cold case. It sounded really, really interesting. Someone is on death row for killing a stewardess 10 years ago, something like 18 years ago, my gosh. Right when he's about to be executed, someone sends a letter and says, actually, someone else committed the crime, and it's all very confusing because this person who is on death row apparently confessed. He was, an alcoholic, and he was not even coherent at the time. And so his cousin is a police officer who wants to know the truth, and then we follow the other person in the story who is a TV news reporter, and of course it's like there's a little bit of romance, it's a romantic suspense happening, and so they are going to try and uncover the truth because actually it's her sister who was killed and his cousin who is blamed for the death. So they're going to try and uncover the truth. Compared to the other 2, it was my least favorite. Again, I like Patricia's writing style, but for me, the story and the way the relationships developed and the investigation, I just didn't enjoy it as much. It was still good, don't get me wrong. Give it a 2.75 stars. I think you probably could round it up to 3 stars, I think. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite in her series, and also, I like Patricia. I like her style, I like her writing, but she's done better. Okay, the next book that I read is called Fake Identity at Stake, and it is by Elisa Renee. I'm gonna choose to say Renee for this. And it's supposed to be a romantic comedy. It's really quite short. So the story is about a woman who is thrown into witness protection, and her neighbor, who is, of course, a very handsome guy, has his grandmother who has passed away. Her prized chickens are in his backyard, and the dog gets in there and kills the chickens. And so it starts off this enemies to lovers. So there's like a misunderstanding. It sounded really interesting because I love romantic suspense. I love that. And normally in a romantic suspense book, the main focus is on the suspense, and it's got romance in it. This book attempted to do romance with a little bit of suspense in it. I think that potentially can be done well. I was disappointed with this story though. This felt like very much like someone who writes romance books but does not really do a lot of suspense writing. The romance side of things were really nice, but because there was the suspense elements in there, it fell flat. It just felt like the suspense part was an afterthought. Everything was just sort of mentioned a lot but not really dealt with, and then the ending was so quick and so rushed, and it was just like, oh yeah, by the way, I should really tie up that ending. And the way it was wrapped, I was like, oh okay, okay, that was really abrupt. Some of the dynamic between the two romance characters was actually quite funny, and I really did enjoy, but I think I gave this one also same rating, apparently 2.75 stars. The next book that I got, I think, was my longest book this month, and it was The Choosing by Rochelle Decker. I loved this book. So I almost can't describe how much I love this book. I think every teenage girl should read this. I think every woman on the planet should read this. Honestly, this book was so good. Okay, I'm gonna describe it though, and it's gonna sound awful. I would classify it as a YA dystopian. If you would imagine a cult takes over basically the world. The year 2257. And so basically the way the world looks now is that women are less than, we're back to that. We've gone backwards. The only worth that a woman has is by being chosen in this ceremony. So when they turn a certain age, they are literally raised to be the best person to be chosen by a guy to get married. If you don't get chosen, it's your fault. You then become part of this group. You are the lowest of the low. You do the jobs that nobody wants to do, and nobody really talks to you, looks at you. You are just viewed as absolutely worthless. Worthless. And you feel that way because that is how people treat you and how you've grown up to know what those people are and who those people are. And so it is your goal in life to be chosen. Like, if you do not want to become a Lind, you just do not. And so that is sort of the world that we're living in. And our main character, her name is Carrington, and she goes through her choosing ceremony, and she does not get chosen. She actually finds out that there's a guy who is outside of the city walls who's actually speaking something really different. And it's like, you're beautiful and you're chosen and you're worth something, you have value outside of people choosing you. And so that's why I think that everybody should read this. Honestly, I gave this book 5 stars. It was an easy 5 stars for me. It was so good. Oh, I'm so annoyed. I literally talked about this entire next book without filming. How frustrating! The next book I read was Blinded by Travis Thrasher. Every character in here sounds like they're high, and it's craziness, and you're like, what the heck is going on? Like, it was actually really good. I rated this 4 stars. Travis's writing style is very easy to read. It is simplistic, but also really well done, really beautifully written. And so it is a really easy read. It was only like 240 pages. The story is about a guy, his name is Michael. He meets a girl, a woman whose name is Jasmine, and she is pretty and mysterious. And so he sort of ends up connecting with her. And then all of this crazy, dangerous stuff happens in her life, and he's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And he sort of finds himself, wanting to protect her even though he doesn't really know her, and he wants to make sure she's okay. And so they go on this crazy journey over the course of one night. It is so good. It is like literally like what the heck is happening all the way up until the very last page. I should say that like there's cheating triggers in here. The next 2 books that I read, I'm going to talk about at the same time because they were second and third book in the selection trilogy. The Elite I gave 3 stars, and the one I gave 4 stars. I won't probably talk about them in too much depth in this video because I am doing an entire video about my thoughts on the selection overall, the trilogy. Overall, I was genuinely surprised that I liked this series. I genuinely was surprised. If you don't know what the selection is, it's basically like The Bachelor meets royalty meets a dystopian like Hunger Games, but without the fighting, I suppose. Like a Bachelorette Hunger Games. America singer. So she ends up being pushed into going into this Bachelor type competition, and when she's there, she's really upfront with the prince and is like, I'm only here for the food. I don't care about you. I don't want to be here. I'm just here for the food and the money for my family. Second book, I gave 3 stars. For me, the second book was my least favorite in the trilogy. It really just felt like a book of filler. And then the last book actually was my favorite out of all 3. I really enjoyed the last book. I think the most of the exciting stuff happened. Most of the interesting things were going on, and it was actually a really nice conclusion to this story. Holier Than Thou by Jackie Hill Perry. Holy Fire by R.T. Kendall. The Knowledge of the Holy, which is by A.W. Tozer. And then Spurgeon on the Holy Spirit, Charles Spurgeon. I'm noticing there is a book missing on here. So I've actually read 13 books. So I read What If Love Is the Point? Living for Jesus in a Self-Consumed World by Alexa and Carlos Penavega. So Alexa Penavega was in Spy Kids. Carlos Penavega is in Big Time Rush. Those are probably the most likely places that you've seen those guys and know about them. But they are now married. They have 3 kids now. Oh my gosh, crazy. And this is sort of like their story of how they met, how they fell in love, how they got together, but then also their relationship with Jesus. And they're very quite open about that. This one I actually listened to on audiobook because they narrated themselves. 4.5 stars. Heart of Red, Blood of Blue is a dystopian book. And it is, I listened to this on audiobook, and I don't do a lot of audiobooks, and I think it's probably why it's taken me quite so long to get through this. I gave this 2.5 stars, so I actually listened to majority of this on double speed because I wanted to just get through it. And for me, I thought the last sort of quarter of this book was the best. Why couldn't we get to this sooner? And so basically the story is about a girl called Gisela, and she has a dystopian world. She is royalty. She's one of, like, I think 12 siblings in the House of Red. So they are a royal family who do like everything red, but she has been born as an albino. There are 3 kingdoms who are currently trying to fight, like who are fighting each other. The 2 kings have struck a deal. Giselle ends up running away, and she's trying to figure out, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna be safe? The characters just made weird choices I didn't understand. They were just silly. It was dumb. There was a romance in this, and I did not feel like it was at all natural. It didn't feel natural. It felt ridiculous. I was like, no. I didn't really enjoy the world building. It really fell flat for me, and I think I gave it a 2.5 stars. It just was not, it wasn't it. Rebecca Belliston, I'm very sorry, your book was not for me, but I'm sure other people really liked it, and that's great. The last book that I read is Wooing Katie McCaffrey by Bethany Turner. This book really excited me. It sort of sounds similar to Better Than the Movies. I love Bethany Turner. She's a Christian, I think, romance writer. Our main character, Katie McCaffrey, and her boyfriend whose name is Will. They work together. They've been together for 4 years, but she decides that he doesn't actually love her like enough to get married, and so he seems to be pulling away. So she breaks up with him, and he turns to his friends in the sporting world to help him get her back by using techniques and things that were done in her favorite rom-coms. That is sort of how it's sold on the back. I think the reality of this book is a bit different. For me, the best part of this book was the last third. If they sort of had just expanded on that and reduced some of the first bit, I think it would have been better. I still love Bethany Turner's writing. This wasn't as funny as the last one. It wasn't as endearing. This is a misunderstanding trope, and I hate misunderstanding tropes. I hate it. Where, like, you sit down and you have a conversation in the first place, none of this book would have happened the way it did. I read that in someone's review that they didn't like her point of views, but they did like Will's, and I think that's fair. I think that she came across as whiny because her point of views came across a lot of current day when he's already pulled away, like their relationship isn't really great at this point, and so she sort of gets these whiny POVs, whereas his points of views were a lot of the previous, what happened in their relationship, like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So he actually got a lot of really nice POVs. He was the funny character, he was the likable character, and she was unlikable because she's in the middle of pain and hurt. And if you like misunderstanding tropes, this is the one. I still gave this book 3 stars because, like I said, the last third was really good, and that's where I got my humor that I was missing, the really cool, interesting relationship dynamics. So that's what I've read in September. That's my like wrap up. Really quickly, I wanted to go over what I'm attempting to read in October because I am borrowing a lot from the library this month in October, as far as I can see. It is kind of eclectic. It doesn't have a theme. These are the ones that I'm attempting to read, in October, and I'll probably go through them really quickly. So Ready Player One, I feel like that's old, 2012, my gosh. Oh, stop it, Will Wheaton did the audio book for this. Stop it. Anyway, I only know about Will Wheaton because of The Big Bang Theory. No offense to Star Trek fans. Anyways, I got Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. So there you go. That's that. Another one that I wanted to try and pick up this month is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first one, I believe, in the Mistborn series. I've attempted to read this before. Brandon Sanderson is amazing, but this is sort of like magic, people with magic doing heists, I guess. That's like the best way that I've heard it explained. He intricately creates these world building systems, and so for me, I'm like, I have to really be in the mood to read something like that, but I think I finally want to actually try and read it. The next one that I wanted to read was Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. See how we go. If you've read any of those, let me know what you thought about them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the adventures.